presentations this morning. Thank you for being with us. So firstly, we'd like to know your perspective on the Air Force's mandate and how it has evolved over the years. So from Canadian participation in more conventional conflicts such as the Second World War, Korean War, to more asymmetric conflicts like Afghanistan. So how has the RCAF adapted to new conceptions in defense?
Yeah, well, RCF is, 89 years old this year. It's a great organization. People see the Royal Canadian Air Force, they can think of the Battle of Britain, they can think of the Second World War, how it evolved. It's much smaller than it was, but the Air Force has always been seen as probably one of the best, if not the best, Air Force in the world. It's small, but it attracts what Canada can produce. Is the best that Canada can produce. I attract the best young people to come with me. It's a small organization, and we're busy into all kinds of operations. But you talk about conflicts, Afghanistan and Libya. But the Air Force is not just about conflicts. Before the Second World War, the Air Force was probably the best tool to build Canada, exploring, mapping. Today, search and rescue is probably one of my busiest operations in Canada. 1,200 calls a year. We're out there in a vast country with a small Air Force. When Canadians get in trouble, we're there with our helicopters and airplanes. We deploy outside the country. Look at what we did in Haiti a couple of years ago. Disaster, earthquake somewhere in the world. We're probably one of the best equipped Air Force now to be able to deploy within hours and operate in a disaster area. When we went to Haiti, many countries wanted to operate out of Haiti. The Port-au-Prince airport became congested inside a couple of days, and it was difficult to receive aid. The U.S. looked at the small airfield south of Port-au-Prince, Jacmel Airfield, and the U.S., a big Air Force, looked at it and said, well, we can't operate, this is too small, it's dangerous. The Canadian Air Force looked at it and we said, well, let's go and take a look. And actually we operated out of there for 6 months, found ways to do it. We turned that airport into an airport which was receiving a couple of flights a day to 100, a couple of flights a month, to 180 flights a day, receiving aid and distributing this into Haiti. Small Air Force, but probably one of the best equipped, one of the most innovative, most professional, standing on shoulders of many, many Canadians that have built the aerospace industry in Canada and the Royal Canadian Air Force.
The topic of procurement, you've been quoted as stating that essentially you tell the government what you need and they take over. When you're defining these needs, what criteria do you use?
Well, it's always based on what is the Air Force being asked to do. What does the government expect from the Canadian Forces? What is the mandate? And we go from there to how do I do the job best? And in the Air Force, what kind of capability would meet the goal? Obviously, you want to be able to do the job. You want to be able to do it safely. You want to be able to come back. So we look at all those requirements when it's time to define our statement of requirement based on the capacity.
What sort of threats do you perceive when you describe the need for an aircraft such as the F-35?
Well, it's difficult because you're looking at next generation of fighter. Replacement for the F-18. We've flown the F-18 for 30 years now. We're still going to fly for another 15 years. So you're looking for an airplane, a fighter airplane, you're going to be flying 2025 and beyond. It used to be in the 50s, you'd fly a fighter for 10, 15 years, 20 years was a long time. We're going to be flying the F-18 for 40, 45, maybe 50 years. I'm looking at the next fighter and fly it as a minimum for 50 years. It could be 60 years. Well, what do you expect between 2025 and 2075? Because that's the timeline I'm looking at. What are we going to be doing? What kind of threats will exist? You can think of everything, you will not be able to think of everything. So I need something that is going to give me the most flexibility, that will cover as many threats as possible. I need to think of the environment in Canada. We're going to be flying in the Arctic. We're going to be flying long distance. We're going to be flying in places where communications are difficult. So it needs to be something that technologically I'm going to be able to connect. I'm going to be able to multiply its effect by using technology. And be able to give it as a tool to the government if they want to go outside the country and play a role in the world. So it basically covers a lot.
What is the state of the Air Force's integration and interoperability with NATO and with the U.S. today as it stands?
Well, you're young. You're connected to the internet. You've lived with the iPads, with the iPhones, with everything. This is technology today. My airplanes need to be connected. I need to be operating not just as a platform, but as a network of platforms. So every system needs to be able to talk to each other. In the concept of NATO, small countries provide small capabilities, but when we connect them all, it's big, and it's going to impact. Canada needs to be positioned in this. So interoperability is an absolutely essential quality to anything we're going to do. So in that sense, we're looking for an airplane that will provide us the ability to connect, to share, and do operations with our closest allies.
More generally speaking, would you say that, or how would you say Canada's priorities next year, 2014, are going to, where will our priorities lie? Is it going to be more domestic, speaking of the Arctic, or do you see any other regions in the world becoming more of a perceived threat?
Well, I'm looking from an Air Force perspective, I'm looking certainly at trying to maintain the capabilities that we have now, because this gives us, or gives the government options to carry on our task, our mandate in Canada, but options outside the country. But I need to prepare for the future, and it's not just 2014 or 2015, it's beyond. Certainly the Arctic needs to be the background to everything we're going to be building as an Air Force in Canada. This is where we're going to be operating in the future. We've used the Air Force to open the prairies, to open the West in the 1920s and 30s. The Air Force will be playing a role in how we're operating in the Arctic, whether it's to ensure safety of people working in the Arctic through search and rescue, or ensuring we're developing architecture, infrastructure, runways for Air Force operation, but eventually will be civilian infrastructure as well. Air Force is going to be there, and I see this as a priority for the Air Force to position itself to meet that requirement.
That's all the questions we have. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.